Welcome back to the She Suite Society, the podcast where we celebrate the real, the raw, and the remarkable journeys of women who chose to bet on themselves. I'm your host and empowerment Sherpa, Dalia, and today's guest is someone who has spent most of her life searching for one thing: truth. Truth about health, about what our bodies are capable of, about what women actually need, and then building the space to provide it. Jessica Gesue grew up endlessly curious, a self-described overachiever who was always asking why. That curiosity took her through a winding path from the suburbs of Cincinnati to corporate finance to competitive bodybuilding at 40 to training women out of her garage during a pandemic, and now to the launch of Alvita Social Wellness, a community-first club in Worthington, Ohio, built specifically for women. But what I love most about Jessica's story is that it's not really about fitness. It's about figuring out who you are, what your body is telling you, and what becomes possible when you finally start to listen. This one is so good. Let's get into it. So we're going to start at the beginning, which might not even be the beginning, but we're going to start there. Where did you grow up?
Cincinnati, Ohio, in the suburbs. I was a mall rat, so I did all the things that we did in the 80s and 90s and all of the processed food and sodas and, but don't worry, I drink diet soda. So yeah, it was always, we'll kind of get into that. Health and wellness has always been with me since I was very young, but yeah, just suburban Midwest kid, two younger brothers. So
you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest, only girl, an oldest granddaughter, and yeah, so I have all of those traits
and the pressure.
Yes,
and you're the only girl.
Yeah, so only girl in my family, and then I was the only girl cousin for 10 years before my other cousin was born. So yeah, so just I was my mom and dad had me early and had to get married because of me. So I actually spent a lot of time with my grandparents as well. So they were a huge influence in my life. And then my mom has 4 siblings and my dad has 7. So big Catholic families. So always around family, always growing up around family, super active. So yeah, it was a good childhood. I was very, very lucky, very lucky.
How would you describe who you were back then? How did you fit in yourself?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I really ever thought about it. I have been super independent since I was born. One of the stories is my dad is really into technology and he had all these like stereos and different things. And I was like 2, like a toddler, and I knew I wasn't allowed to touch them. So I would literally go and stand right by all of his equipment. And he did music and all this like guitars and stuff. So it was always a like, don't touch that, don't touch that. And I would just stare at him and like literally put my finger out, like, I am going to touch this. So I think from a very young age, I always had an independent streak, if you want to call it that. And, why can't I touch this? And curious and wanted to know what the adults were doing and grew up with a lot of adult influence. So yeah, I was
mischievous.
I was a little mischievous. I was mischievous, but I also was the good girl. I did, all the good grades, overachiever, straight A student, and really wanted to do a good job. And, I think that curiosity, I was always trying new things and, just all across the board. So it was
very cool.
It was fun. I think my personality was, ingrained very early. So
you just were you from a very early age. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So you went where after childhood?
So grew up in Cincinnati. We moved to New York for a couple of years, moved back to Cincinnati. So really most of my childhood was in Cincinnati. I went to Denison University, which is just east of Columbus, a liberal arts school. I'd actually looked at doing a accelerated medical program. So I was always interested in health and wellness and medicine. And I decided last minute not to do that. So we don't have any doctors in my family. So I was the one person who was always interested in health and nutrition. I started that at an early age. I was taller and bigger, and I've been this height since I was 12, 5'6". So I always was very body conscious and body aware, being a girl growing up, especially in the 90s when we had the, Kate Moss culture. And I was always bigger and more muscular and athletic and, just didn't kind of fit that mold. So I was always very body conscious and body aware. And I think, one of the first things that I learned early on is that we actually have a lot of control over ourselves and our body and our health and wellness. So, I was eating what my friends were eating as, a middle schooler, of course, right? Because that's just what we do. And I was gaining weight. I was going through puberty early and I was gaining weight. And there was a high schooler in my neighborhood and she would walk in our neighborhood every day. And I watched her totally transform herself. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's something here. And that was the first thing when I was probably like 13 that I realized that exercise and movement and like, eating nutritious food, we can actually change the way our bodies are responding to what we're doing from a health and wellness perspective. So it was a very early kind of insight for me. And so through high school, well, the beginning of high school, I lost about 20 pounds, adding in exercise and running. And I was the girl going to the step aerobics class. This is dating me.
No, they still do that. They still do it.
You know what? It was really fun. And I went to this club up the street and I was in like, I think it was at the community center. I was in there with all the moms, but I was when I wasn't playing sports, I was working out and I was training. And then I also lifted with my dad. So early on, 13, 14, 15 years old, I got into weight training as well. So I was able to kind of transform the way that my body was carrying weight and add in more muscle and reduce that fat. So from a very early age, I realized that we actually had a lot of control and we weren't just destined to be one way or another. And it's not just always like, I think a lot of people too who are naturally thin, they think, oh, I can never build muscle. So I think it goes both ways. And I really do think we can have a huge effect on our body composition.
It's interesting because the way you interpreted it and the actions that you took, I feel like are not the norm. Because I also teenager in the 90s,
Mhm.
um, anorexia and bulimia were huge. And I hate to be so blunt, but that's who I am. So
Yeah, yeah.
interesting that I know that you had to have been impacted by that in terms of like you saw it happening around you. How did you receive that? Like what did you do with that?
Yeah. So I struggled with that as well because
Oh, okay.
I'm an extreme person. So as I started to figure out that I could change my body, I was like, wow, like I can be really restrictive. And then I took it to the extreme. So by the time I was in college, I was too thin. So they have to have, they say 12% body fat. I think it's anywhere from 12 to 16% to actually have a period. By the time I was in college, I lost my period completely
Whoa.
because I was not eating enough and I was exercising and I was still, on from the outside, I looked like, I mean, normal at the time. Obviously, I was thin. I was a small. But I wasn't as small as my friends. So no one thought there was an issue. And I just carry more muscle. So I just looked regular at that point, but I wasn't healthy because I wasn't having a period. So then I went into this phase of,
I literally just got chills because that was so powerful to say. Like, because seriously, there are people out there that
yeah,
look quote unquote healthy, normal, but are not healthy,
or not.
normal.
are not. They're
And I'm
not.
really glad you said that, because a lot of people think that you have to look a certain way to be able to be
Right.
unhealthy or whatever. So sorry, go ahead. Go
Yeah, no,
ahead.
that's a great point to just kind of highlight too, because when I think from a full like wellness industry, we look at people and we label them as healthy or unhealthy, but that's not, you can't look at somebody and know what their stats are, if they're having a regular period, are they sleeping well? And for me, like, I think no one knew that I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody that I wasn't having a period. I didn't tell people that I ate 800 calories a day and I would track it, and then I would work out to make sure that I burn those calories, right? So, and I was like, this is how I need to fit in because everybody else is the same way. What I didn't realize is I was just naturally had more muscle. I was just naturally like bigger. So, which ends up being great for me when I'm a bodybuilder, right? So I think this all comes like
Sorry,
full circle.
what? You were a bodybuilder?
So we'll get there, but I love this point of, everybody has such a different body shape. You can't just look at it and know. And I think when you are missing your period, you're not having your period. That's your body signaling that you aren't healthy. You aren't getting the nutrition you need. And so as humans, our bodies say, no, 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 you cannot reproduce right now because you're not even taking care of yourself.
Wow. That's exactly true and right. But you saying the words out loud, it's like
Right. And so
remarkable.
that's the reality of it. So I had to go through that learning, right? And I had to say, this isn't healthy for me. I need to find a healthier way. And so I just continued to search for truth. And I think that's one of the underlying themes from all of this. I was always looking for, well, what is the best nutrition? Because if you grew up when I grew up, it was low fat.
Yeah.
It was, no fat at all. It was low calorie. And so it was always something new. And there was always like, do cardio, now do yoga, now do this. So I was always searching. I was always trying new things. And that foundation, though, of weight training really stayed with me from a very early age. And I was always so nervous that I was going to get bulky. Okay, so here's the like, it's impossible. Like, unless you are like really trying to get bulky, you cannot as a woman. So
Oh,
I
good
was
to know.
yeah, I was always so scared of it. And so I continued to lift weights and, be active and really, the 20s, I still was just trying to figure out what's healthy, what's not. I had, at that point gotten to a healthy weight, had my period and all of that. But I still had those times where I was like, wow, I wish I was this or that, just those normal struggles that I think we all struggle with and trying to become to terms with our bodies and love our bodies. And I really think that pregnancy is actually where I started to really enjoy my body and really, yeah, I know, right?
So opposite from so many. So
I,
many. Oh my God. Please
yeah.
explain.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I
first
know
of all,
we're jumping, but I have to hear this.
that's okay. Like, and this is nothing I wrote down, so this is hilarious. I don't know where this is coming from. So I just feel like when I was pregnant, I was like, it was such a realization of this is what my body was meant to do. And I'm saying that as a complete feminist who thinks that women should be working and doing whatever they want to do. But when I was pregnant, I realized that all of these things that my body had been telling me for all of these years led up to that moment of me creating this life.
Right?
Right. So then I'm like, oh, duh. Like, I mean, I was pregnant at my first time at 31. And, it was my kind of permission to let myself really, really enjoy food and nutrition and eat well and support this other being that I was growing that wasn't me in my head. So it really turned the way that I looked at myself as an individual. And again, it was never about anyone else. So I think that's what people always kind of ask me too. Like, oh, did you think that you needed to look a certain way because everyone needs to look? No, it never was about that. It was always about me trying just to be the best I can be. Again, that type A personality, that perfectionism. So, but I think during the pregnancies, I realized like, wow, my body was meant to do way more than just be this, Jessica, right? Like all of a sudden, I'm this mom, I'm able to grow this baby. I had healthy babies, great pregnancies, and I was so grateful for all of that. And when I see these huge babies that I grew, I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm doing something right here. I had really healthy pregnancies. I bounced back really well. And so I think a lot of that was because I had good nutrition before and during my pregnancy. I worked out, I had the muscle. So it was like, oh wow, I did set myself up well, but now I need to appreciate myself and not be so hard on myself all the time.
I have always had theories on that because I also had very easy pregnancies, like super easy. And I just don't like being bigger, but I knew that I was growing babies. So I was like, whatever. But I never, I had theories about why mine were so easy. And a lot of other people around me really just didn't have it easy. And I literally thought it was because of exercise, nutrition, of course, some genetics play.
Yep. Yep.
But to your earlier statement, you can change, you can affect your body. And I had also been on the healthy kick too. So
Yeah.
I think you just validated that for me.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like there is something about being in shape and having good nutrition. The other little piece of this too was I was a vegetarian for 15 years.
Oh, what size for 8?
Really?
What do you think were you vegetarian when you got pregnant?
No,
Oh,
because I couldn't. So I was a vegetarian for about 15 years. It was a combination of I just wasn't liking meat. I didn't like how it was cooked. I just didn't know kind of what to be eating. Obviously, I wasn't getting enough protein. I wasn't getting enough B12. So when we first trying to get pregnant, like it was taking a while. And I was like, what's going on? And so the doctor said, you're fine. You're still within the year, all of this. And I just had this idea. I was like, I'm not eating, I don't think I'm eating enough protein. So I started to add meat back into my diet. And within 3 months, I was pregnant. Now, it could have been a complete fluke, right? It could have just been, it was time. But since then, I've actually talked to a few other vegetarians and I've recommended that, and they actually have been able to get pregnant right after that.
dang.
So now I think that you can be a vegetarian and get all of your protein needs. I think it just takes more planning and more work to get all of the essential amino acids. And I was not a good vegetarian. I was just eating.
Same.
I was not meal planning. I was not doing all of the things you should do to get all of your essential amino acids. So I think if I would have been a little bit more aware, I could have maintained that and gotten all of my protein needs, but I wasn't. So I did switch to animal proteins. And I have ever since. I've never gone back to vegetarianism. So
Okay. And same, by the way. Crazy how similar. But I've never been a bodybuilder. Tell me about that part of your life.
So after I had my last baby at 38, I had decided that was it, no more kids. He was a large baby and they just kept getting bigger. So I was like, man, I got to cut this off. So I decided that I wanted to start working out again. And I was 38, 39, and wanted to get back into lifting. And the other part of this story is kind of going along with the health and wellness kind of theme here is that both of my mom's sisters were both diagnosed with breast cancer when they were 40. So I always had this idea in my head, like 40's coming, 40's coming. So then I was like, okay, done having kids. It's time for me to really get back into shape. At the same time, my grandmother had just passed away from Alzheimer's at an early age of 78, and I was really close to her. So there were like all of these things going on. And I was like, okay, I'm going to really give this a shot. So I had this belief that building muscle was going to help for long-term health, metabolic health, get me back into shape after, our bodies changed so much during pregnancy. So I just thought I needed to get everything kind of back in shape for myself. So
People can't see the motion you just did, but it is suck it all in motion. It's like, bring it all back.
Gonna bring it all back. It was all stretched out for those big babies. So I started lifting, and I gave myself a 6-month goal. And I said, I'm going to do this consistently for 6 months. And after 6 months, if I make it through 6 months of being consistent, I'm going to buy myself a new gym wardrobe. So that was my goal. So until then, I couldn't buy myself any new gym clothes. I had to just wear what I had. And so I gave myself basically a carrot and a goal with a time and a specific. I wanted to work out 4 days a week. I had a trainer and I had a plan. So I did that. And as I was doing that, my trainer had asked me if I'd ever thought about competing. And I literally was like laughing. He's a 30-year-old guy. He was a bodybuilder. And I'm like, dude, I'm 39-year-old mom of 3 kids. Like, what are you even talking about? Right? Like, no. And Dalia, like I'm the girl who wears like turtleneck. I mean, I actually kind of have
Yeah, you do. You do.
turtlenecks and long shorts, right? So bodybuild, I was like, no. So, I got to my goal. I really enjoyed it. I was feeling great. All of those things. And then I, working out again for another, let's say 3 months. And at that point, he's like, you should really try to get on stage. And so I did. I said, okay, well, I will get on stage when I'm 40. So we worked for another year together, and then I competed for the first time right around my 40th birthday.
Wow. What did that feel like?
It was awesome. I think it was outside of my personality. So I know we talked a little bit about personality and type A. So if you think type A, turtleneck girl, always doing the right thing, this was not part of that. And a lot of my friends and just acquaintances, they're like, what are you doing? They would send me messages like, this is not you. Are you okay? And it was funny because I just kind of laughed because it was actually exactly my personality. So in order to be a bodybuilder, you need to be disciplined, consistent. You need to track all of your foods, all of your macros, everything you do all day long, all of your movement, all of your supplements. So it actually was like I was already that type of person to be doing that. So, but what it did was it just set me outside of my comfort zone and really taught me that I can do hard things. So, as a mom, you're kind of like, the kids are everything. Like, I'm a mom. These are my kids. This is like my full-time job. And I wasn't working at this point. So I was just stay-at-home full-time mom. And so this really gave me something to do that, prove to myself that I can actually do those hard things. So
like really hard things. That is so impressive. Just so impressive. I mean, it's just not things people think to do, as a personal challenge. And I love that you shared that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you go in and now you're sharing your knowledge with everybody because you are building something quite phenomenal that I will absolutely be signing up for. Please tell us what that is.
Yeah. So really this started with my training. Coupled with that, I knew I wanted to go back to work, but I didn't want to go back into corporate finance. So that was my job.
I don't feel like you have to explain why you didn't want to do that.
Corporate numbers, spreadsheets, right? So you get the picture, right? So I wanted to go back to work, but I didn't think I wanted to do that. So I deep dived into the world of health and wellness coaching. So I got 2 different health and wellness coaching certificates, learned all, again, this goes back to being just super curious about health and wellness and nutrition and how much of it is mindset. And that's what I really love. I love to dig into mindset and how growth mindset and how you think about things. And so I did that. I got nationally board certified. I got my personal training certificate as well, because I just thought, as a 40-year-old woman, I was able to change my body composition so significantly and get on stage. I really thought there was something there for women, and the way that the trainers were training me was okay, but I just felt like, as a woman who had babies, there was a lot more that I was doing on my own to really create that core strength and work on my pelvic health and different things that I wasn't learning from the trainers at the gym. So I thought, okay, well, I think that now that I went through this, I have this knowledge. I would love to share it with other women. So I was getting this all set up, and then COVID happens, of course, because COVID, throws a wrench in everyone's plan. But with that, I had a few people reach out to me and ask if they could train with me because the gyms were closed. And so that's when I opened my garage and started training women in my garage during COVID. And I would train 4 women at a time. We were all, had masks on, socially distanced, all of that. But really, in the garage is where this idea started. So we would meet and we would learn how to move our bodies and strength train. And I would teach everyone about keeping your core nice and tight and controlled and movement. But really, it was the community that was being built between the women. And we talked about everything. We talked about hormones and sleep and our relationships and peeing our pants. And my husband's like, I cannot come into the garage when you guys are in there. Like, he's scared to walk through the garage to go to his car outside, right? Because he's just like, I never know what I'm going to hear you guys talk about. So it was, I saw the women progressing, and I was just so proud of all of them. And it was the little things. It was like someone coming and telling me that they could, carry the vacuum all the way up the steps, like just little things that women would be noticing with building the strength. But it was all those other things that I was like, why don't we have a place for this? And right, like,
For us. Yeah. I don't know.
for us, right? And so that was the question that I was asking myself, and that's when the idea started. And so I wanted a place where women could come and feel comfortable, where it wouldn't be the gym intimidation factor. It was going to be built for women, not the way that gyms are set up now with the sea of machines. I wanted to have a community room that you walked into first. So this community first idea. And so that's really where the idea started. And since then, it has evolved into Alavita Social Wellness, which will be a club in Worthington, Ohio, opening this fall. And basically taking those core concepts, but it grew from there. So it grew into not only community first, but creating partnerships with a lot of health and wellness practitioners in the area, because I knew I couldn't do this alone. I was always referring women out to this person, this person, this person. So I thought, well, why don't I bring the practitioners in to the women of the club? So
Just
that's
so brilliant. Just so brilliant. And what we need, there's a lot of women, which because this is what you do. But there's a lot of women that just don't know where to start. We want to be healthy, but you're on the precipice, especially those of us that are in our 40s now. You're
Yeah.
on the precipice of being in menopause. You're
Right.
but you're still fertile. So you don't really know what to do.
Don't know what to do. Right.
Some of us are stretched for time. Some of us are stretched financially. Some of us, we just don't know where to go and where to start, and let alone to even put yourself first. And so I love the concept of community first, and a place where honestly we can go and have honest conversations without any shame being in the room. Because there's also like, how did I let myself get like this?
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Everyone has a different story and a different journey. And so for me, when people say, well, who's going to be your customer? Who are you targeting? Like, I'm really targeting the wellness curious woman. So it can be anybody who is interested in health and wellness. You don't have to tell the story to yourself that, oh, I'm already a fitness person. Oh, I can go. It's not about this permission. It's about any sort of, woman who is interested in meeting other people. learning about health and wellness, just being part of a community, really. And so it really opens up the door to a lot of women who may feel like they're not that type of woman to go to a gym or to go to a studio. And so what we're doing is taking this community first approach where you can come and just be a community member and you get one free credit to use towards a fitness class. So you can use it or not, it's just free. But you can come and be a member, enjoy the space, get the discounts at the day spa and the recovery room, and join us for programmed wellness events and different events that we have throughout the year. So it's kind of this flexible model where my hope is that women come and they get through the door and kind of bridge that first hurdle. And then when they're there in the space, they're going to see other women just like them. And they're going to say, I can do that too. And so that's the secret. But now I just said it on your podcast. But that's
But I love that you started there because that's the hardest part is walking through the door. It's getting out of your car and walking through the door is the hardest part.
just
I love that. Thank you for sharing literally everything. It's how many, our third time really getting to talk.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've enjoyed every time I've talked with you. But in the interest of time,
Mhm.
I end every episode the same. Although, again, as always, the whole episode is literally advice. But what piece of advice could you give to a listener listening right now that maybe you think they need to hear in this space? It could be a mantra you live by too.
Yeah. So I really love taking things very in little bite-sized pieces. So I think right now we always hear big dreams, go big. And I think a lot of times, like I remember being a stay-at-home mom and thinking like, sure, I would love to dream big, but right now I'm just trying to get my kids, dressed and off to school. And I only have this little bite-sized amount of time to do anything. And so, I mean, my advice to women is you don't need an hour, you don't need 6 hours, you don't need to go on a wellness vacation. I think that's another thing that is kind of this idea that wellness needs to be this super luxurious big event. It can be small bite-sized pieces where you're doing something for yourself in those 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes that you have throughout the day. And then those habits stack. So I'm a big believer in habit stacking. So I think a lot of times we try to say, okay, Monday morning, let's go. I'm going to like be healthy. Right. And then by Tuesday night, we're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to have pizza now. So I think that there's a really great opportunity to just do little things and get those consistent. Pick one thing for a month and do that consistently, and then try one more thing, and then add 5 more minutes to your routine, and just stack it because we really have the rest of our lives to create these habits. So we're not, it's not a race to get to summer or anything like that. I don't believe in that at all. I believe it's a lifetime practice of wellness. So
That is perfect. I love that. Yeah. It's a summer body. It should be an all year round body.
it's all year round. It's all
You
year
still
round.
have your body. So.
Right. Right.
Jessica, thank you. Honestly, I knew your story was going to be powerful and you did not disappoint. I'm so glad we got to share it. If today's conversation resonated with you, please reach out to Jessica. Her contact information is in the show notes. And if you're in Columbus area and want to be part of what she's building at Alvita Social Wellness, do not wait. Get on her radar now. And here's the takeaway I want you to sit with. You don't need a big overhaul. You just need one small thing done consistently. Stack from there. That's it. Wellness is a lifetime practice, not a race. If this episode meant something to you, share it. Send it to a woman in your life who's been trying to figure out where to start. Leave us a review. Tell a friend. Every share helps this community grow, and I'm so grateful for every one of you who keeps showing up here. Remember, your life is your story to tell. Why not make it extraordinary? Until next time, I'm Dalia. Thanks for being here.